On November 27th, Pope Urban II called all Christians to fight in a holy war against the Muslims. Their goals were pretty simple: to defend the shrinking Byzantine Empire and to take back the Holy Land of Jerusalem, which was under Muslim control. This was the start of the First Crusade. He was able to gather a massive army at the time of 60,000 to 100,000 men by saying that all of their sins would be forgiven for helping other Christians. This was shaping up to be an absolutely massive conflict. Welcome to the Crusades Simplified. Europe at the time was a very agrarian community and very disorganized into tiny little kingdoms. In a normal war, you'd expect 2 professional armies, but instead, on the Crusades, random people went, pretty much. Especially nobles would tend to bring their entire court on crusade, which was definitely not the original point. Emperor Alexius, the reinforcements from Rome arrived. Well, how many are there? About 100,000, sir. 100,000?! Emperor Alexius was not prepared to house, feed, and organize 100,000 soldiers. This caused the First Crusade, and pretty much all further crusades, to be very disorganized, as managing that many men was a very difficult challenge. After the organizational challenges were slightly resolved, they were actually able to do some damage in the First Crusade. They were able to capture a bunch of places and set up Crusader states, namely Nicaea, Antioch, and of course Jerusalem in 1099, which was their final goal. They went home knowing that they had successfully accomplished their goals and would rule Jerusalem for a long time to come. But wait, less than 50 years later, it's time for part 2, as one of the Crusader states set up in the last crusade fell to a Muslim advance. People were eager for a second crusade, but this time they were not as successful. They failed to make any real impact, and they were actually at a net negative, as it caused a lot of the relationships built up in the First Crusade between Catholics and Orthodox Christians to break down. After the failure of the Second Crusade, people were not as eager for a Third Crusade, but it was necessary, as a Muslim sultan named Saladin was advancing and attempting to capture Jerusalem. He did succeed in capturing Jerusalem in 1187, and the Christians were able to secure at least one victory in 1192. However, they failed to retake Jerusalem. But they did set up a peace treaty that allowed the Christian pilgrims to enter the Holy Lands. And that peace treaty brought along a new era of happiness and cooperation between the religions. But no, in 1200, the Christians again organized a crusade to capture Jerusalem. This crusade had a very enthusiastic response, but unfortunately, no one had the money or wanted to provide the money to do the crusade. The Crusaders went to Constantinople to receive financial aid, but when it was denied, they just looted the city instead. This was a horrible idea, as it worsened the relationship between the Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church, and as you can imagine, this crusade accomplished nothing besides literally raiding their own people. Like I said, incredibly organized. Before the next crusade, the Pope had an idea about a children's crusade, but as you can imagine, that did not go very well. There was a 5th crusade, but it literally accomplished nothing. They set out with the goal to conquer Egypt and take back the Holy Land, but in the end, all they got was a peace treaty saying that they wouldn't attack Egypt for 8 years, and a hasty retreat. In the 6th Crusade, it seemed like they may have started learning from their mistakes. This was the first crusade not run by a pope, but instead by an emperor. In fact, Frederick II of the Holy Roman Empire. This conflict had very little military fighting, but was still one of the most successful encounters of the Crusades, and resulted in the Kingdom of Jerusalem actually having control over their land, as they had a peace treaty that allowed them both access to the land. Somehow, with a smaller army, he was able to negotiate away a bunch of land, including a lot of the important targets of the Crusade, away from the Muslims and into the hands of the Kingdom of Jerusalem. There would be 3 more Crusades, the 7th, 8th, and 9th Crusades, and they were organized by King Louis IX of France. The first 2 Crusades were disastrous and ended up in actually his capture. He died before the 9th Crusade, but they did it anyway, and even after a few early victories, a peace treaty was negotiated, and the Christians did not retake Jerusalem. This was not the final crusade, but definitely the last one that really mattered. This is my first video on this channel, and I'd really appreciate if you could subscribe, like, and comment to help support the channel. And I'll see you guys in the next history video.